name's Andrew, and I am an alumni of Sovereign Health here in San Clemente. I'm 34, I almost said 33 because I want to be 33 still. I'm 34 years old. My sobriety date is April 12th of 2015, so I'm coming up on 2 years. And I am a grateful recovering alcoholic, drug addict, and really somebody who was just addicted to more. It didn't matter what it was. So, you know, to qualify, I have been through those feelings that you guys feel on a daily basis, where you're sitting around the center and you're wondering, what is it that I'm doing? What is it that we're doing? And you know, time's passing by and you can't somehow get your hands on it. And I've been there, and I go back to those times very, very frequently, because it was in those times that I realized that nobody was going to step up and take ownership of my future other than myself. And it was solely on me to advocate for myself and know the path and direction that I had to go in, and the various ways that I needed to better take care of myself. As a kid, I definitely felt terminal uniqueness growing up. There were always problems behaviorally. The only thing that really got me by, I think, is that I was a pretty decent athlete. And you know, that's what even kept me in the realm of having friends or being invited to birthday parties and stuff like that. I really was just more into causing mayhem wherever I went. And you know, I had my first drink when I was about 8 years old. It was in the summer on a lake in Iowa, visiting my family out there. And one of my dad's good friends from high school, he had a son who was about 12, and he got his hands on a case of beer. And I was going to partake in this because I wanted to belong. Little did I know that I had found what I had been looking for so long, which was to change the way that I felt about the world, about you, and certainly about myself. And I used that as a little crutch throughout the years. So I get into my teens, and I'm causing a lot of trouble, but again, sports along the way kept me in check, and I always had my eyes on the prize of becoming a collegiate athlete, and that's what I wanted to do, and I did it. But once I got to college, I had already arrived. I had already met my goal. So at this point, it was about establishing a new personality so that other people would like me, and that's what I did. So I was the kind of guy that would, you know, we thought it was a bright idea to take an old TV, and we took it from our dorm room, you know, however many stories up, and one night at about 2 a.m., we pushed it out the window, and it made an extremely loud crash. And those are the kinds of things that I would do. Well, after a number of behavioral infractions with the university, I was met with the dean and the athletic department, and they said, look, you're gonna have to go away and go to treatment for a little while. Otherwise, you're going to lose your scholarship. And I said, okay, yeah, sure, no problem. It's like a vacation. So I did that. And of course, you know, my family's like all supportive, and they're all thinking, oh, you know, this is it. This is the wake-up call that he needed. He's going to change his life. Yeah, right. So I have my first experience of, you know, being hospitalized in an inpatient program, and it certainly was not enough. I did whatever I could do at that point to make my way through, get what I needed. It took me all into my 20s and all the way through my 20s to continue to self-medicate. And there were times that I would take my medication, but all the time I was taking all kinds of drugs, definitely smoking a lot of marijuana, and definitely drinking a lot of alcohol. And that's really a Russian roulette cocktail when you think about it. The worst thing you can do is take psych meds and then do other drugs and drink alcohol. So I'm continually going into hospitals, and a lot of times I would go into these deep, dark depressions after, you know, a long bender, you know, or I would be doing really well at work, but I would somehow, some way now I understand exactly why I did it, but at the time I didn't. Self-sabotage myself and end up in a pit of despair. And I would end up in the hospital, and they would say again, well, you know, it sounds like based on your behavior and all these things that, you know, you're bipolar. As far as alcoholism is concerned, or addiction, I grew up at 5 years old going to meetings with my father, who got sober when I was that age, and in first grade, I walked into the first day of school and said, hi, my name's Andrew and I'm a cocaine addict. Because I had heard that going to meetings with my father, and that was like how I was gonna identify and how I was gonna introduce myself. And so there was a lot of AA literature and CA literature and all these things all over my house growing up. There were really no consequences in my life all through my 20s, just a lot of pain that I didn't want to feel anymore. And so it really brings me into my 30s. And I got sober for the first time on September 9th of 2013. And I was definitely done at that particular time with the drugs and the alcohol. I'd been on such a crazy bender after the usual fiery car crash relationship with a woman that I was the instigator of. You know, I was either taking a hostage or I was allowing myself to be taken hostage, and then I wanted to blame the person for me jumping on the plane with them. And after you know, a number of failed relationships, in this particular one, I decided that my way to respond was to convince yet another emergency room doctor that I needed morphine because my back hurt. And that was, you know, before I then found myself locked in a hotel room with you know, a couple bottles of whatever it was. And I went on like a 3-week to a month-and-a-half bender, and I was done with the drugs and the alcohol because I lost my game. I was out of gas. Well, I immediately got taken to an AA meeting, and I was on the path. I had a sponsor. I was hanging out with people that knew people, and so now I was somebody that was going to be known, and I was taking commitments, and I was doing all this stuff, but I wasn't doing any work on myself. I was running for myself again, but I was doing it in the rooms of a 12-step program and not really doing anything to change my intolerable situation or circumstances. I finally had had enough. I was so torn up inside about being torn up and never really finding a solution that I finally had no choice other than to turn to the bottle. It was just, you know, a puff off a marijuana pipe, and then it was 2 hours later, I didn't get the effect that I wanted, so it was a 24 ounce, and then it was a fifth of scotch or a fifth of bourbon, whatever it was, but it always had to be more because it was never going to fix the hole that I had inside myself. I went in the bathroom and I looked at myself in the mirror, and it really wasn't even me looking in the mirror. It was something bigger than me looking me in the mirror and saying, Andrew, you're either gonna go this way or you're gonna go this way. What's it gonna be? Because your, you know, 9 lives of a cat are up. And I just knew. I knew instinctually and intuitively inside myself that that was it. That had to be the end of it, and I had to do whatever it took to get sober and to stay sober. And I also knew at that particular moment that I had to do whatever it took and be willing to go to any lengths to finally deal with and accept, acknowledge, and take action when it comes to the diagnosis of bipolar 2. The minute that I got to Sovereign, you know, I was greeted by a number of people and really made to feel warm, and not in the kind of like cushy cozy way, like we're gonna pat you on the back and everything's gonna be okay, but it's like, you know, we got you, and there's a structure and there's a purpose behind everything, and although it may not make sense to you on most days, give it some time and it will make sense. So while in Sovereign, I got busy. I got very, very busy. I was very adamant about making sure that I was able to make it to as many meetings as I possibly could. I made sure that I asked for my passes because I had a sponsor that was driving up from San Diego. And whether it was from San Diego or down the street, it didn't matter. That me meeting with my sponsor and a couple of other people was of the utmost importance. I also learned the hard way that if I didn't meet the standards of behavior that Sovereign places, which really, aren't that drastic. They just, want you to be kind and respectful and honest. That if I didn't meet those standards, then I was going to have those privileges revoked. And at the time, I was really resentful over it. I was like, I'm paying you to be here, and you're going to take these things away from me. And the joke was on me again. I learned a valuable lesson. The truth is, there are a number of people at this place that work here that if you take the time out of your day, instead of maybe, oh, well, I have to miss break, and the cigarette circle and the whatever, if you just take that 20 minutes and go and talk to somebody about what it is that you need, or you find somebody and they say, I can't talk to you right now, but I'll pull you out of group. That stuff goes a long way, and it starts this process of momentum. It was the relationships that I built with staff members, believe it or not, that kind of forged and paved the path ahead for me to deal with life that wasn't just inside the walls of Sovereign, but was on the outside of the walls at Sovereign. Because someday, whether you're here on private pay or whether you're here on insurance, there's going to be a day when you have to go out the door. I can't say profoundly enough how much this program has done for me. I obviously have reflected a little bit more recently on this than I have in the intermediate past. But when Guy called me and asked me to speak, it really kind of brought everything to the forefront again of the value behind this program and the value of the people that work here that will go above and beyond for you as long as you show them that you're willing and you're going to follow the rules and you're willing to ask for help. And the people that you're going through this journey with, the real gift that I've been given from Sovereign and from my recovery is a new purpose in life. And that is to be of service, of maximum service and usefulness, not just to my peers in recovery, but to everybody in my life. Today, I have a beautiful life. I am a good son. And I refrain from saying things that I want to say. I am a good brother, and I refrain from saying things that I want to say. I am a good friend, and I refrain from saying things that I want to say. And, I never also thought it possible to even comprehend what a healthy relationship is. And today I can say that I know exactly what it is. That gift that I've been given of maximum service and usefulness, I also get to be a great uncle. I have to ask myself this every day. How bad do I want it? How bad do I want a better life? And you guys have the ability to ask yourself that same question. How bad do you want a better life? Are you willing to do whatever it takes? And I hope that your answer is yes.